Hey, what's going on guys? John here, and today I wanted to do a video review and installation demo of the Perlegear TV mount. So in this video, I'm gonna first start off by showing you everything that's included inside the box, giving you some idea of what tools to expect. We'll go through the manual a little bit. Then I'm actually gonna show you this installed up on the wall using some of the things that we'll talk about here. And then I'll show you the finished product once we've actually installed everything and have the TV mounted. So let's first start with everything that came in the box. This is a very nice kit just from first glance. You actually have the wall mount itself, which is heavy duty. There's actually 3 metal bars that go across here. And then you also have this adjustable piece here that can be used to adjust the level. So very high quality in comparison to a couple other TV mounts that I've used in the past. This is going to work on more or less 16-inch studs. You do have a mount piece here that it gives you as just a guide. So this is basically an exact match to the TV mount itself. It gives you very clear instructions here that you'll be using a level, basically finding the studs, positioning this on the wall using the included level, drilling with a 7x32-inch bit, and then you're actually just tightening the lug nuts right into those, right into the studs but behind the wall. Now, just to give you an idea of my setup, I actually have my home gym here. It's a little bit of a mess right now. I've just got this dining table here which is conveniently being used. I had just assembled for this setup. But I'm gonna be clearing this all out of here eventually. And I have this tiny TV here that doesn't really have any like smart TV functionality. And when I put it in here, I thought, oh, well, it's white, this will look nice. Ultimately, it's not really a great TV. And I wanted something that was a little bit bigger. And typically I like to do a lot of like follow along style workouts. So I'll play something on the TV and just kind of like work out with whatever's going on, whether or not it's like stretching or cardio or whatever it may be, in addition to just using some of the other equipment I have here in the gym. So I have this extra 55-inch TV down here that I'm actually going to be installing. So I'll show this kind of as the final example, and it should span out to, you know, go roughly half to maybe a foot across on each side of the window, and it will span this entire section here that's really just not being used as of right now other than the small TV. Now, some of the tools that you're going to need for this installation would be a stud finder. I really like this one here that we have called the Stud Buddy. This one actually will find metal in the wall, so what it does is it finds screws that were put into the drywall right into those studs. So I know that there's a stud here, and I believe I found another one when I did the installation of this other mount. So I'm gonna basically match that, and you can see I was able to find that here. So this is where I'm gonna end up doing my pilot holes. I'm gonna take this TV down, and we're gonna need a few other tools as well. I typically just like to use a really nice drill, something like this I have here. We have our drill bits, so I'm gonna find the right size to match up. And these are the lug bolts that are basically gonna go right through into the drywall. So this going through the drywall and into the stud is more than enough to hold something like a heavier 55-inch TV like this. So that way you're not gonna run into any issues. One thing to keep note of is you do have some anchors here, but they're not designed for drywall. They're specifically designed for concrete installations. So I do not recommend putting a large TV with a mount like this straight into drywall. You'll literally destroy your wall. You really need to put this into studs. Now, some of the other things that this came with is you do have your level here, which is actually pretty nice. I can keep this around. You have all your various screws that you'll need when attaching the actual brackets to the back of your TV. So what's gonna happen is these brackets are gonna go basically like this. You can see there's an up arrow, very specific in terms of how it's designed. This up arrow will be where you mount it, and then this hook is actually gonna go right onto this latch here that goes all across the TV mount. So I'm gonna go ahead and prep my area, get all this ready, and then I'm gonna show you I'm gonna jump over, show you the actual mount installed up on the wall, and just show you what that looks like when we've got our lag bolts in. Let's actually take a minute before we do that and take a look at the manual. This actually does go through and give you very specifics on like visa pattern, all the tools that you're gonna need, pencil, tape measure, you know, some other things here that I didn't mention. You do have spacers if need be for your TV. I probably won't need to use those with this, but it does mention, you know, you want to either be using wood studs with drywall or solid concrete block. And then it really goes through, shows you all the components, everything that you have here. Selecting your TV bolts, you're going to be using a specific bolt that's going to go into your TV, adding in the washers, and really just giving you an idea of all the different options of how you go about installation. So this really goes through everything in really nice detail. I do recommend when you go to install this actual mounting piece here, you most likely get a second person to help you, and that way you can keep this level. So let's jump over to the next part. I'll show you the actual bracket installed in the wall, and then we'll go over the brackets installed in the back of the TV, and then finally we'll show you the finished installation. Okay, so we've made some progress on the install, and I wanted to stop and just show a section here. So basically what I did is I obviously found where the bolts go into this wall. In my particular case, this actually originally had very, very thick plywood behind it, and I do not believe, or at least if there is, any studs between this, because there's windows. Most likely the studs are just on the ends. So I'm actually utilizing the very thick plywood for my left side bolts, and then I'm actually utilizing a stud for the right side bolts. I don't typically recommend something like this. I did a little bit of research, and you just have to be careful, obviously, but you know, doing a basic test here, this is extremely sturdy into the wall. This is definitely not going to drop the TV by any means, just because I'm going into the plywood. And again, in most cases, you are going to want to make sure you're just hitting those studs based on the 16 inches that are apart. In some rare cases, you may have a home that's like got 24-inch space studs, but that's not super common. So we've got our 4 bolts in. I was able to use the drill and this attachment that I have that goes into this lug nut here, but basically the next part is to actually attach these pieces. So in 2 of the boxes that you're going to get, you're actually going to have 2 of these plastic pieces. One is actually going to sit on the left side like this, and you can actually see there's a hole here, and screws G are going to go into the back here, which is going to come through on the other side, and then you're going to have a rod that comes through the bottom. Now what you're going to notice is you're going to have a couple of these rods. So one is actually going to go like this, and then the other rod is going to connect right over that. And the way that you can tell that this is successful is you'll see there's a little bit bigger screw holes here that line right up into the actual base, whereas on this side it's a little bit smaller to go into the plastic piece on the ends. So I'm going to get this all connected. We'll get the TV pieces mounted on the back of the TV, and then I'll show you that next. Okay, so I finished this part here. Basically, when you open the bag labeled G here, you're going to have several screws. There's 4 of these screws that you're going to be able to use the included hex wrench with. So you just tighten these all 4. And once you've done that, you just put on your end caps, and then you have 2 screws that are actually in the back side of each. And I was able to use the drill, or you could just use a regular Phillips screwdriver to screw those in. So this is now pretty much ready to go. There is a little bit of play here, so I'm probably going to tighten this up. You have 2 adjustments here as well on the back, so this is basically for that angle adjustment, so you can just tighten this up, and now you can see I don't have as much play. So I'm able to just completely tighten this to a point where now this isn't going to move. And then additionally, you can also adjust the angle adjustment back here. So this will basically tighten all of that so it won't move like side to side. So you have a couple adjustments there that you can make. The other one I'd have to do with a with an actual like wrench, but otherwise this is pretty much good to go. At this point we can now mount the TV. I did want to show you what I did with the back of the TV as well. I ended up utilizing the M6 washers that were in the bag, and I was able to line up the bottoms. So you want to make sure you're looking at this up arrow here that's on both sides, and you're basically just going to take a washer, put it through the bolt that's compatible with your TV, and then you have these last pieces here which are actually safety brackets. So what's going to happen is this is going to go alongside the bottom of the actual bar. So it's going to go along this bottom side, and it's going to clamp right over that. And then you have 2 additional screws that also came in the G bag that are going to just tighten right here, and that way it's going to secure the TV. And additionally, you have this hook here, so it's going to hook in through the top. So for any reason you ever had to remove it, all you'd have to do is take these 2 screws out, flip this back, and then lift the TV right off the mount. Pretty straightforward. I'll show you the finished product here once we've mounted the TV. Okay, so the TV is now mounted. I'm very happy with how this turned out. Just to give you some idea, pretty much once I was able to mount this, and by the way, I actually did it by myself. I don't necessarily recommend that because the TV is heavy, but I didn't have any help today with this and I wanted to get it done. So you have these latches again that go over on the bottom, and this worked out perfectly. I was able to take these screws and just screw it in on each side, and then you could tighten this, and as you can see, it just hooks right over the top. Overall, I'm very happy with this mount. Pretty much got this whole thing set up. It's holding perfectly and it's very easy to adjust. I also really like that you have the 2 bars here, so this will just extend out as needed. And if for any reason you could also slide this down a little bit on one corner, I just tried to get it as much in the middle, pretty much as I could. In fact, I think it's a little bit more on this side, but overall it's really just going to depend on what you're doing. So overall, hopefully you guys found this review helpful. I do highly recommend this mount. It's probably one of the nicer ones that I've seen. The adjustability piece on this is really easy to use, whereas others you're probably going to need some kind of wrench or other tools, and you could just do it right on the fly with this. Overall, very nicely designed and really easy to set up once you've got everything going. Anyway, thanks for checking out the video review, and I hope you found it helpful.